This conference will now be recorded.
So in the previous session, we have discussed about conditional statements, and we have discussed what exactly a conditional statement and what is the use, what conditional statements available in Apex programming, and how to use if condition with all the formats, and how can we use switch statements we have discussed. And we have discussed the various of formats of if conditional statement, and we have discussed about the two syntaxes of switch statement also, how to compare a variable value with a single element, how to compare a variable value with the multiple elements also we have discussed in the previous session. And we have discussed what exactly the iterative statement, what iterative statements available in Apex programming. We have listed out those iterative statements. Now today we'll see each iterative statement one by one, the syntax, the execution flow, and how to use them. We'll see one by one with the practical use cases. Now, and we have discussed Apex provides four iterative statements. We have discussed Apex provides four iterative statements. First one, while iterative statement. Second one, do while. Third one, for iterative statement. And the fourth one, enhanced for loop. These are the four iterative statements that we have in Apex programming. So now let's see each iterative statement one by one. So let's start with while iterative statement. Let's see what exactly the while iterative statement, how the syntax will look like, how it will execute internally, what is the execution flow, and how to use them. Now let's see one by one. Now, so let me explain the syntax first. Now, so let me explain the syntax. Here we have to specify while, we can specify the conditions. It may be one or more number of conditions. Also, we can specify with the help of logical operators. And inside the block, we can write the statements. So whatever the statements that you want, we can write those statements inside this block. So this is the syntax of while iterative statement. While conditions, and we can specify the list of statements which you would like to execute if the conditions get satisfied. Now, so let's see how it will execute. So what is the execution flow? Now let me explain. Now let's see. As part of this while iterative statement, before this while iterative statement, it might be having some more other additional statements may be available. Okay, some more business logics are available here. Now it will be executing the code one by one, one by one, one by one in the same sequence. Now, it is executing this business logic one by one, one by one, one by one. At a certain point of time, it is reaching to the while iterative statement. As soon as whenever it is reaching to the while iterative statement, at the entry gate itself, we are having the conditions. So these conditions has to be verified first. So as a step one, it will check the conditions. As a step one, it will verify the conditions. Whatever the conditions we have specified, those conditions will be verified first. Now, so upon checking the conditions, there are two possible results are available. Either conditions may be satisfied and the conditions may be failed. Now, in this case, suppose if the conditions are satisfied, then it will enter into the block. If the conditions are satisfied, it will enter into the block. When if the conditions are true, if all the conditions are satisfied, it will enter into the block. So once it has entered into the block, whatever the statements you have written, these statements will be executing once. These statements will be executing once. This is the third step. As the step three, whatever the statements we have written inside this block, these statements will be executing once. So once all the statements has been executed, if there is no more statements available inside the block, then it will go back to that conditional part. Boss, already I have executed the statements once. You want me to execute one more time or not? It will check the condition. This is the fourth step. This is the fourth step. It will check the conditions here. So now if the conditions are again satisfied, it will enter into the block. It will execute the statements. That means second time also statements will be executed. Once the statements are executed second time, again it will go back to that conditional part. It will check the condition again to check whether you want me to execute third time or not. Like that, this process will be keep on continued till the conditions get satisfied. Once the conditions get failed, it will comes out of the block automatically here. This is the fifth step. So this is the flow of execution that we have as part of while iterative statement. Okay, understood the flow over here? Now, initially it will check the conditions first. Whatever the conditions we have, if all the conditions are satisfied, it will enter into the block. It will execute the statements only once. Once the statements has been executed once, then it will go back to that while condition part in order to check whether the conditions are still satisfied or not. If the conditions are still satisfied, it will enter into the block again. It will execute the statement second time also. Then it will go back to the conditions part. If the conditions are satisfied, it will enter into the block, execute the statement third time. Like that, this process will be keep on continued till the conditions get satisfied. Once the condition get failed, it will comes out of the block automatically here. Okay. This is the flow of execution that we have as part of while iterative statement. So now tell me, is this while is a pre-checking iterative statement or post-checking iterative statement? Pre-checking. How do you know pre-checking? First of all, it is checking the condition. Before executing this statement, it will check the conditions first. Once the conditions are satisfied, then only it will enter into the block, it will execute the statement. So that we can say while is a pre-checking iterative statement which will execute a block of statements repeatedly till the conditions get satisfied. Okay, so in while iterative statement, it will check the condition first before executing the statements. Every time before executing the statements, it will check the conditions first. Now, the statements will be executed continuously till the conditions get satisfied. Once the conditions get failed, it will comes out of the block automatically. Clear? Now, make a note of this one. Syntax. while conditions write the statements. While is a pre-checking iterative statement which will verify the conditions before executing the statements. Now, it will execute the statements continuously or repeatedly till the conditions gets failed. So conditions get satisfied. Once the conditions gets failed, then it will comes out of the block. Done with this? Now, let's see. So let's take some practical use cases. Take a small use case. Write an Apex program to print the welcome message 5 times on the log file. I want to print the welcome message 5 times on the debug log file. Done with this? Now, let me explain. How can we write this piece of code? Now tell me, in order to print that welcome message, what is the statement we have to use? System.debug. Right. So we have to use system.debug statement in order to print the message, okay, on your debug log file. For example, I'm using system.debug statement. System.debug, welcome to Apex programming. So this is a statement which I would like to execute. In order to print the welcome message on the debug log file, we are using system.debug statement. That already we know system is a ready-made class in Salesforce and debug is a ready-made method which is going to be printing this specified message in the debug log file. Now, now in this case, I want to execute this statements 5 times here. Generally, what we have to do, if you want to print this message 5 times, we are keep on writing the same system.debug welcome to Apex programming 5 times over. But it will be looking like as lengthy. So the same code will be keep on repeated multiple times. To avoid this problem over here, I'm writing the statement only once. This is statement repeatedly I want to execute till 5 times. Now, so that I would like to use that while iterative statement. So now tell me, whenever we are printing this statement, every time we are counting, right? Because we need to print exactly 5 times, not less than five, not more than five. So exactly 5 times. So every time we have to count. Like first time I have printed, second time printed, third time printed, fourth time printed, fifth time printed. Once you are printing fifth time, then stop executing the code. So, in order to check how many times we have executed, I would like to maintain a counter. I'm maintaining a counter variable. Generally, the counting will be starting from 1. So, I'm defining a variable, okay, with the name counter. You can give any variable name, whatever you want. X also, or it may be I also, whatever, anything. Now, whenever we are writing the code in the real-time implementations, we have to follow few coding standards and naming conventions. So that I'm giving the variable name as counter. So because it is indicating that how many times we have printed to count that we are using this counter variable. So we have defined the variable with the name counter, which is of type integer, and then have initialized the variable with the value 1. Now tell me here, how many times you want to execute this statement? 5 times. So I'm using a while iterative statement. I'm using while iterative statement. Now I would like to check the condition. Now as of now, the counter value is 1. I want to execute this statement till the counter value is reaching to what? 5. So that I'm checking the condition while counter less than or equals to 5. That means till the counter value is reaching to 5, please execute this statement here. Till the counter value is reaching to 5, please execute this statement. Okay. Now in this case here, initially the counter value is 1. So we are checking the condition, we are executing that. Okay, fine. So we have printed one time. Now after that, what we are doing now? We are printing second time. How can we indicate counter value will be 2? We have to increment the value by 1. How to increment the value by 1 now? Counter plus plus, right? That already we have discussed all the operators. 5 categories of operators we have discussed as part of Apex programming. In order to increment the value by 1, we are using plus plus operator. So now in this case here, initially counter value is 1. For example, now the counter value is 1. It will be going to that condition here. We check the condition. Counter value is what? 1. Less than or equals to 5. Is the condition is satisfied or not? Yes, because 1 is less than 5. So it will enter into the block. It will execute the statement once. Okay. Then counter value will be incrementing by 1 more because it is indicating, boss, we have printed one time, now I'm going to print second time. Now counter value will be incrementing by 1 more. Now the value will be 2. Now it will go back to that condition part here. It will check the condition. Now counter value is 2 now. 2 less than or equals to 5. Is the condition is satisfied? Yes. Again it will enter into the block, it will execute the statement second time. Then counter value will be incrementing by one more. Already it is 2, now the value will be 3. It will go back to the condition part, it will check the condition. Now 3 less than or equals to 5. Condition is satisfied? Yes. Now it will be executing this step. Then counter value will be incrementing by one more. Now the value will be 4. It will go back to the condition. It will check the condition. 4 less than or equals to 5. Condition is satisfied. It will enter into the block. It will execute the statement fourth time. Then counter value will be incrementing by one more. So now the value will be 5. It will check the condition. 5 less than or equals to 5. Is the condition is satisfied or not? Yes, because we are having equality operator also. Now it will execute the statement here fifth time. Now the counter value will be incrementing by one more. It will check the condition. 6 less than or equals to 5. Is the condition is satisfied or failed? Failed. Condition is failed. It will comes out of the block automatically. So by that time already we have printed 5 times. Clear? So in this case, depends upon your requirement, how many times you want to execute, we can specify the condition. So now we have to initialize a variable with starting from 1 and then execute the statement still it is reaching to 5 and then every time we are incrementing the value by 1. Okay? Now, so now let me write this piece of code. Let me execute it. I'm going to my Salesforce org now. I'm going to my Salesforce org. So let me go to the execute anonymous window. Go to the developer console. Go to the execute anonymous window. Now I'm writing this piece of code. Integer counter variable value I'm initializing with 1 because I would like to count how many times I have printed this statement on my debug log file because I want to print exactly 5 times over here. So I'm going to be iterating this piece of code till the counter value is reaching to 5. So counter less than or equals to 5. I'm writing the statement. System.debug. I would like to print the message, welcome to Apex program. And every time I'm incrementing the value by 1. Once it has been printed, I'm going to be incrementing the value by 1. Suppose if I'm not writing this statement, okay, counter plus plus, then always counter value will be 1, always condition will be satisfied, so it will go into the infinite loop automatically. Okay, so that every time we are incrementing the value by 1. Okay, now click on execute, go back to the developer console, select the debug only, and we can see the results. So now whatever the code we have written, that code has executed my statement 5 times here. Exactly 5 times it has executed, so we can see the results. Okay. Suppose for example, now tell me, the same code I want to execute 10 times. What can I do? Counter less than or equals to 10. Instead of 5, we can specify 10. So just it will be executing this a piece of code 10 times. Depends upon your requirement, we can specify how many times you want to execute this statements. Okay? Now, make a note of this code. Done with the code? Now, next. Next use case. Write an Apex program to print the numerical numbers from 1 to 100. Write an Apex program to print the numerical numbers from 1 to 100. For example, I want to print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that up to 100. I want to print these numerical values. Okay, now. So now tell me how can we write this piece of code here? Okay, initially we have to define a variable and then we have to initialize with 1. Why 1? Why not 2? Hmm. Because I would like to print the value starting from 1. So that here I would like to define a variable and initialize with the value 1. That means I'm defining a counter variable initializing with 1. Then I want to execute the piece of code till the counter value is reaching to 100. Because already we are maintaining the counter value 1, 2, 3. For every time we are incrementing the value. So we are maintaining the value inside the counter variable. So we can execute the block of statements till the counter value is reaching to 100. And every time we can print the counter value and directly we can increment the value by 1. Okay. Now let's see how can we write this piece of code. Now I'm defining the variable integer counter equals to 1. I want to check the condition while counter value less than or equals to 100. While counter value less than or equals to 100. I want to print the statement system.debug numerical value is, I would like to indicate the counter value, and every time I want to increment the value by 1. So initially the counter value will be 1. It will check the condition 1 less than or equals to 100. Condition is satisfied. It will print the value here, counter value. And then second time I'm incrementing the value by 1 more. So now the value will be 2. It will check the condition 2 less than or equals to 100. Condition is satisfied. It will print the value 2. Like that it is printing the value till 100. Once the number 100 has been printed, now the value will be incrementing by 1 more. That will be 101. It will check the condition whether 101 is less than or equals to 100. Condition is failed, it will comes out of the block automatically here. Okay, clear? Now, now let me click on execute. Select the debug only. Now we can able to print the numerical values over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that up to okay 100. We can print the value up to 100. Clear? Make a note of this code. Next one, write one more program. Write an Apex program to print the even numbers between 1 to 50 in reverse order. For example, 50, 48, 46, 44, 42, like that till 0. Write the code for this. I want to print only even numbers which will be in reverse format. That means 52 till 0.
బానే ఉంది వామిటింగ్ ఉంది. ఓకే.
Done with the code? Now, so now tell me what needs to be done to do this. We have to initialize the variable with the value what? 50. Why 50? Why not 1? Hmm. We have to print that even numbers in reverse format. So from starting from 50 onwards. So I'm defining the variable. Integer counter equals to 50. I'm defining the variable and initializing with the value 50. Next, I'm using this. Counter value greater than or equals to 0. That means till the counter value is reaching to 0. Okay. Right now, counter value is a 50. Now till it is reaching to 0, that means if it is more than 0, then please execute this block of statements. Now I would like to print the message. System.debug even number is, I would like to represent that value. Okay, now, so we are checking the condition. 50 is greater than 0 or not? Yes, 50 is greater than 0. So we are printing this value 50. So once the 50 has been printed, what is the next number you want to print? 48. Then how can we do that? Hmm. In this case,
Counter minus minus.
minus minus means it will be decrementing the value by 1. Hmm. Counter minus equals to 2. Okay, that already we have discussed assignment operators. This assignment operator is going to be decrementing the value by 2. If you want to decrement the value by 1, we are using minus minus. To decrement the value by more than 1, that means to decrement the value by 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 100 or 1000 or 1 lakh, whatever, we are using minus equals to. Okay, I want to decrement the
Okay.
value by 2. So counter minus equals to 2. That means what? This statement is equals to counter equals to counter minus 2. Okay, counter equals to counter minus 2. Both are similar. We are decrementing the value by 2. So initially the value will be 50. It will check the condition. 50 is greater than or equals to 0. The condition is satisfied. It will enter into the block. It will print the statement 50. Now, after that, it will be decrementing the value by 2 more. So now the counter value will be 48. It will check the condition whether 48 is greater than or equals to 0 or not. Yes, condition is satisfied. It will print the value 48. Then value will be decrementing by 2 more. So now the value will be 46. It will check the condition 46 is greater than or equals to 0 or not. Yes, it will print the value. Like that, it will print the value till 2. Once a 2 has been printed, now it will be decrementing the value by 2. So now the value will be 0. 2 minus 2 means 0. It will check the condition. 0 greater than or equals to 0. Condition is satisfied or not? Satisfied, because we are having equality also. Now it will enter into the block. It will print the value 0. Once it is done, then it will decrement the value by minus 2. What is the value then? Minus 2. It will check the condition. Minus 2 is greater than or equals to 0. Because minus 2 is less than 0. So condition will be false. It will comes out of the block automatically. So by that time, we are able to print the values from 50 to 0. Okay? Now, because if you know the syntax of the program, if you know how it is executing, then we can trace the program very easily. After writing the code also, if you are not getting the exact result, if you are getting some wrong results, then we can trace the program line by line by using that execution flow. That's what I have given this execution flow also, how the program will be executing over here. If you know the flow, we can trace the program very easily. Okay, generally when you go to that C programming, C++, Java, .NET, there people can able to debug the program line by using the editors. But in Salesforce, in developer console, we don't have any option to debug the code line by line. If you want to check the syntax, if you want to check that result, just you have to write the system.debug statement. That's it. We don't have any debugging option in developer console or in execute anonymous window also. Okay, because these are not the local environments, these are purely cloud based environments. Clear? Now let me execute this piece of code. Select the debug only checkbox. Now we are able to print the values over here, even numbers, till we are reaching to the value 0. Okay, now make a note of this code. Next one, Write an Apex program to print the mathematical table for the given number as below. Now, I want this a format. Whatever the number that I have supplied to that number, it should generate the mathematical table in this format. Suppose if I'm passing the number some 17, it has to generate the mathematical table for 17. If I'm giving the number as of 126, it has to generate the mathematical table for 126. So I have given the format over here. This is for the fifth. Okay, for the number 5, this is a mathematical table. Whatever the number that I have entered to that number, it has to generate the mathematical table. It's my requirement. But the format will be look like this. Then how can we do this? Now let's see with the practical. So now tell me, as part of this program, how many variables you have to define and what type of variables you have to define. Hmm, hmm. Two variables, okay? In order to store the number. So to store the number for which you want to generate the mathematical table, I'm going to be using a variable. So that here I'm defining one variable of type integer. Next. Second one, we are going to be using this counter variable. It is starting from where? 1. So this is also of type numerical. So I'm defining the second variable here. Two variables I'm going to define. But this value, anyhow, I will be getting that. If I'm multiplying these two, I will get these results automatically here. So I don't want any separate variables. In order to hold the number for which you want to generate the mathematical table, to store that number, I want one variable. In order to store the counter value, we are using another variable. So totally two variables we need, okay, which is of type numerical. That means integer. The first variable will be holding the value for the number, okay, which you would like to generate the mathematical table. Second variable will be holding that value starting from 1, because always we are going to multiplying the number starting from 1 onwards. So I want to initialize a variable with the value 1. Okay. Now let's see how can we write this piece of code. Integer max number. That means I'm defining a variable with the name max number to indicate the number value for which you want to generate the mathematical table. I'm giving like some 94. I want to generate the mathematical table for the number 94. And then I'm initializing a counter variable with the value 1. So within a single statement, we can define, we can initialize the values also. Already we have discussed. Now tell me here. While now the counter value less than or equals to 10. Why I'm using this counter variable here? Because whenever if you want to generate the mathematical table, so now this number is always a fixed. This number is a constant, but these values are keep on increasing over here. So it will be increasing from 1 to till 10. So I'm going to be using a for loop, while loop, which will be keep on incrementing the value by 1. So that here I'm using this while iterative statement, which will execute the statement till the counter value is reaching to 10. Now I would like to print the numbers. System.debug. First of all, I would like to print the value here. This is a format I want. This is a format I want. So first of all, I want to show that number, max number. Then I want to give a space. Space is nothing but a character, right? And then we are having that star also. Now how can we do this one? Now this is a number, this is a character. How can we concatenate both side by side? Plus symbol, right? So we can go with the plus. I'm giving this number. That means 94 into. Then after that, what we are indicating here? 1. That means the number. Where is that number 1? Counter variable. So that here I'm indicating plus counter. Plus. That means here 94 into 1. After that, what we have to specify? Equality. So this is nothing but a character. I'm giving this equality character. Plus. Then after that, what we have to print? The multiplication of both the values. That means max number and counter. So I'm indicating that inside the braces. Max number into counter. So we have to enclose these two inside the braces. Or else what will happen? It will be keep on concatenating like as okay 94 1. So that's what here we are going to be multiplying these two values. I'm representing the result. After that, counter value should be incrementing by 1. That's it. Now, in this case, we are going to be defining the variable and initializing with the number for which you want to generate the mathematical table. Now, every time I would like to start multiplying the number with 1 so that I'm going to be checking the condition okay to execute till the counter value will be reaching to 10. Now, I would like to collect the max number value into counter equals to max number into counter. That means I'm preparing that result as per the format. And then once you are multiplying this number with 1, then second time I want to multiply with 2 so that I'm incrementing the value by 1. Okay. Now let me execute this piece of code. Select the debug only. It is generating the mathematical table for the number 94. Suppose I want to generate the mathematical table for the number okay 1476. So just we can specify the number, click on execute. Select the debug only. Now it is generating the result. Okay. Suppose I want to multiply the number till the number 20 here. What can I do? Counter less than or equals to 20. That's it. So it will be generating that mathematical table for the specified number by multiplying till it is reaching to 20 here. Okay. Simple concept. Now make a note of this code. Done with this? Next. So this is how we have to use while iterative statement. Okay. Now the second one, do while iterative statement. So what exactly the do while iterative statement and how it look like? Now let me explain. So now what exactly the syntax of do while iterative statement? Now let me show you with practical. So let me give you the syntax first. Then I will explain how it will be executing internally. As part of this do while iterative statement, we have to specify do, and inside the block we have to write the statements. Whatever the statements that you want, we can write the statements over here. And here we can specify while we have to specify conditions. Okay, while we have to specify conditions. Do, and then we can write the block of statements whatever you want. And once the block has been done, immediately we can write a while condition block. Okay, to check the conditions. Okay, now let me explain the execution flow. How it will execute internally. Let me explain this. So now, before this do while, we may have written some more statements also as part of our application development. We may have written some more logics also. It will execute the statements one by one, one by one, one by one. At a certain point of time, it is reaching to okay do block over here. Now tell me, do we have any conditions available over here? Do we have any security personnel, the entry gate? No. So directly it will be entering into the block automatically. Directly it will enter into the block here. This is the step one. As a step one, directly it will be entering into the block. Because we don't have any entry conditions, directly it will enter into the block. In this block, whatever the statements you have written, these statements will be executing once. This is the step two. So whatever the statements you have written inside the block, these will be executing only once, not multiple times. Once the statements has been executed once, then we don't have any more statements. Then it will be going back to the while condition. It will check, boss, already have executed the statements once. Now tell me you want me to execute second time or not. So it will check the condition here. This is the third step. This is the step three. So now upon checking the conditions, if the conditions are satisfied, okay, if the conditions are satisfied, then it will be entering into the block here. If the conditions are satisfied, it will enter into the block. So now it will enter into the block again. It will execute the statement one more time. That means second time also statements will be executed. If the statements are executed second time, then it will go back to condition part to check you want me to execute third time or not. So in this case, if the condition is again satisfied, it will enter into the block again, it will execute one more time. So this process will be keep on continued till the conditions get satisfied. Once the conditions get failed, it will comes out of the block automatically. If the condition is failed, it will comes out of the block. If the condition is true, it will execute the block of statements. Okay, this is the flow of execution as part of do while iterative statement. So now tell me in this case here. In this case, suppose it is executing the statements here. First time here, In the do block, it has entered, it has executed the statement. Then it is checking the condition. In the first attempt itself, the condition has been failed. But even though the condition is failed in the first attempt, before that already statements are executed once, right? Yes, this is a major difference. This is a major difference between while and the do while. Because the do while is a post checking iterative statement. What it will do, it will execute the statements once, then it will check the conditions. So this is called as a post checking iterative statement, which will execute the statements at least once. Okay, at least once. Now, so when coming to the while is a pre-checking, do while is a post checking iterative statements over here. Okay, clear? Now, make a note of the syntax here. Syntax. Do, you can write the statements while conditions. Now, do while is a post checking iterative statement which will execute the statements repeatedly till the required number of times. Till the required number of times. Do while will execute the statements at least once. At least once. Done? Now. So let's take a small use case now. Write an Apex program to print the odd numbers between 1 to 50. Write the code for this.
Excuse me, Firoz.
Yes.
Uh, can you move the page a little bit up?
Done with the code? Now, let's see. So now my requirement is I want to print the odd numbers from 1 to 50. Like for example, I want to print the numbers 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, like that up to 49. Because 50 is the even number here. Let's see. I'm defining the variable. Integer counter equals to 1. I'm defining the variable and initializing the value starting from 1 because 1 is the first odd number that we have. So that I would like to start printing the numbers from 1 onwards. So that I'm going to be defining and initializing the variable with 1. And now I'm using the do block. I would like to write the statement. System.debug. I would like to indicate odd number is I'm printing the value counter. Okay. Now, so now after printing this number 1, what is the next number you would like to print? 3. How can we increment this value? Counter plus equals to 2. Now, so now what is the condition here? While counter value less than or equals to 50. Okay, while the counter value is less than or equals to 50. So I want to execute this block of statements till the counter value is reaching to 50. Now let's see. Initially counter value will be 1. It will be entering into the block. It will print that value counter. That means 1. Then counter value will be incrementing by 2 more. That means 3. It will check the condition. 3 less than or equals to 50. Is the condition is satisfied or not? Yes. It will be entering into the block over here. It will print this statement. That means 3 will be printed. Then it will be incrementing the value by 2 more. So now the value will be 5. It will check the condition. 5 less than or equals to 50. Condition is satisfied. It will enter into the block, print the value 5. Now the value will be, okay, 2 more incremented here. So it will be 7. Now it will be checking the condition 7 less than or equals to 50. Condition is satisfied. So it will be printing that value 7. Like that, it is printing the value some 47. Once the value 47 has been printed, now the value will be incrementing by 2 more. So now the value will be 49. It will check the condition. 49 is less than or equals to 50. Condition is satisfied. It will print the value 49. Then it will be printing this value 49. Now the value will be incrementing by 2 more. What is the value now? 51. Now check the condition here. 51 is less than or equals to 50. Condition is what? Failed. Because 51 is greater than 50. So condition is failed. It will comes out of the block automatically. So by that time already we have printed the values 1 to 49. Okay. Clear up to this one? Now make a note of this code.
Excuse me, Firoz. Like in this program, we write counter plus equals to 2. And if in any case, if you want to increase the number more than 2, then what we can mention there?
Here just you can specify plus equals to 3. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Plus equals to
We got
5,
it.
plus equals to 10, whatever the number you want to increment, just you can specify.
Okay, okay, yep. Okay, thank you.
Yes. No, all the iterative statements you can use. Okay, whatever the programs you have implemented through while, the same statement programs you can do by using while do while also, anything. Now let me execute this piece of code. Select the debug only, we can see the results. So whatever the odd numbers that we have between 1 to 50, all the odd numbers have been printed over here. Okay. Now next one. The next one, for iterative statement. The third iterative statement now. So what do you mean by this for iterative statement? So what exactly the for iterative statement or for loop? Now let's see. So till now, we have implemented so many programs by using while and the do while iterative statements. When you observe these programs, there are few statements which are common, so which are completely repeated in every program here. Let me explain. So whatever the code we have written in these programs, okay, the first statement is we have defined the variables and initialize the variables. And then we are incrementing or decrementing the value. And the third one, we are verifying the conditions here. These three statements are common in every program. We have to define and initialize a variable. We have to increment the value or decrement the value. And then we have to check the condition. These three statements are common. We have written in three different lines. This is in one separate line. This is in another separate line. This is in another separate line. Now, when you go to that previous programs also, here also, we have defined and initialized the variables in a separate line. We are verifying the condition in a separate line. We are incrementing or decrementing the value in a separate line. Now, one more program previous. We have defined the variables and initialized, and then we are checking the conditions. We are incrementing or decrementing. So, in all these programs, these three statements are common. So we have to define and initialize the variables. We have to check the conditions. We have to increment or decrement the values. These three statements are common in every program, and that too we have written these three statements in three different lines. Suppose if we want to define more variables, we have to write more lines of code. To increment or decrement more number of variables, we have to write more lines of code. In this case, instead of writing this kind of lengthy code, just we can able to combine these three statements into a single statement. That means I would like to reduce the number of lines of code. If the number of lines of code has been reduced, automatically compilation time will be getting reduced, execution time also will reduce. It will be looking like my program is very, very simple. So that to reduce the complexity in the application, to improve your application performance, we are using the help of for iterative statement. So for is an iterative statement which is used to combine these three statements within a single line. Your initialization part, conditions part, increment or decremental part, all these three parts we can able to combine within a single statement itself by using for iterative statement. Then how the for iterative statement will look like, what is the execution flow, okay, we'll see now. So as part of this for loop, let me explain the syntax. I'm using this for iterative statement over here. Here we can specify initialization part, and we can specify conditions part. Third one, increment or decremental part. Here we can able to write the statements. Whatever the statements that you want, we can write those statements. So now as part of this for loop, the syntax will look like this. Inside the for, we are having this three parts. Initialization part, semicolon, conditions part, semicolon, increment or decremental part. That means each part will be separated by using a semicolon. So each part will be separated by using a semicolon. So now in this case, within a single line itself, we can able to define the variable and initialize the variable with the respective values. And we can check the conditions also, whatever you want. And we can increment or decrement the values also depends upon your business needs. So that as part of this for loop, we can able to initialize, we can check the conditions, we can increment or decrement the values within one line itself. So that these three lines of code we can combine into a single line, so we can reduce the number of lines of code. Okay, now, so in this case here, let's see how it will execute. What is the execution flow? Now let me explain here. So now as part of this for loop, first of all, it is going to be executing the statements one by one, one by one, one by one. At a certain point of time, it is reaching to for loop. In the for loop, first of all, it will be executing initialization part. That means whatever the variables we have defined and initialized, those variables will be getting defined, those will be initialized first. So once the variables has been initialized, then it will go to that conditions part, it will check the condition. It will check the conditions here. So whatever the conditions we have specified, if the conditions are valid, if the conditions are satisfied, then it will enter into the block. When if the conditions are true, if the conditions are satisfied, it will enter into the block. Once it has been entered into the block, whatever the statements you have written over here, these statements will be executing once. Whatever the statements you have written, these statements will be executing once. Once the statements have been executed, if there is no more statements are available in the block, then it will go back to increment or decremental part again to increment the value or to decrement the value. This is the fifth step. Once a value has been incremented or decremented, again it will be checking the condition here. Once a value has been incremented or decremented, it will check the condition again. If the condition is satisfied, it will enter into the block again here. It will execute the statements one more time. And then it will be going back to increment or decremental part. It will be incrementing the value. Then it will check the condition again. If the condition is satisfied, again it will enter into the block. It will execute the statements. Like that, this process will be keep on continued till the conditions get satisfied. Once the conditions get failed, it will comes out of the block automatically here. This is the second step. If the condition get failed, okay. This is the flow of execution of for iterative state. Understood the concept now? Now. So in this case, now tell me, is it a pre-checking iterative statement or post-checking iterative statement? Pre-checking. Here also it is pre-checking. We have while and the for. These two are pre-checking. Do while is a post-checking iterative statement. Okay? Understood the concept now? Now. Then how to use this for iterative statement? Okay, we'll see in tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we'll see the practical concepts of for iterative statement. I will give the syntax also tomorrow so that we can see the practical use cases. And then tomorrow I'm going to discuss about the concept of arrays. So once the for iterative statement is over, we'll see the concept of arrays. After the arrays, we'll see enhanced for loop. Enhanced for loop requires a collection mandatorily. Without the collection, we can't use enhanced for loop. So we need a arrays concept first. Okay. So after this arrays concept, we'll see. Okay, during this arrays itself, I will show you how to use enhanced for loop. Once it is done, then we'll be completing fundamentals concepts here. Then we'll enter into object-oriented programming concepts as well. Okay. Now, so do the practice on these features today. Tomorrow we'll see the for iterative statement in align with the arrays concept. Okay.